Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now, today we're going to try a viewer requested puzzle. You can see there on our Twitter account we've had this tweet from Robin Geets under the name of Fairytailed, and he's saying that he's found this puzzle in his book. I think it's a book of diabolical puzzles. We also got an email from Robin, and he found some swordfishes. He put it into some software that looked for Y-wings, and he wants to know if there's an easier way of solving it. The answer is I don't know, but what I'll try and do is solve it without using Y-wings or swordfishes. Now this might not be possible, but it'll be a good test. Now let's just find the puzzle. Where is that? Here. So, as usual, if you want to have a go, click on the link under the video, and that should take you to our webpage where you can try the puzzle yourselves. And let's take a look at how to solve it. Now, I can put a 1 in here, I can see, because these ones interact. 1. That's got to be a 1 over there, that's got to be a 1, and that's got to be a 1. So, we're off and running. We've got lots of 1s in the grid. In fact, all the 1s in the grid. 6 is in those two positions. 6 is in these two. Do let me know about the mic quality again today. I'm still trying this new mic out. I think the view seems to be that it is better quality mic, but the volume's been a bit iffy, so I'm going to try and improve that today as well. So do let me know in the comments if you'd see an improvement or hear an improvement. 3s. This square here has got to be a 9, and that so's this square. That's got to be a 9 as well. 9's over on the left hand side, therefore. 6, 4. Now hang on, we've got a 5 and a 6 here, and we don't have 5 or 6 at all appearing in row 2, so these two squares have got to be 5 and 6, and you can see there's a 5 there. So that's a 5, and that's a 6. Well, that's a 6 in one of those two squares. Must be a 5 in one of... oh, that's nice. So you can see we've now, these 5s lock a 5 into those two positions, marrying up with the 5s on the left hand side. So this is a common pattern that we pick up with these pencil markings that we recommend. So now we need to think about where a 5 can go in the bottom row of the grid. You can see it can't go in those squares, can't go in this square, so it must be in one of those two squares, where it forms a 5-6 pair with its friend here. So now immediately I look up here, because these two squares have got to be 3 and 7, and there's a 7 there. That's a 7. That's a 3. And bother. I don't think I can go too much further. Let's check. What do we need here? 3 and yes, we can. Look, these two squares have got to be 3 and 4. That's a 3. Oops, not 3s, 4s there. 3's into one of those two squares. Again, we find another pair there. That's 3 and 6 now. Let's just have a look at this column. We need 2, 4, 7 and 9 to finish it. So that square is a 2 or a 7. It's 2 or 4. 4 or 7. You can see those squares, therefore, form a triple. And the only place a 9 can go in that column is going to be this square here. 9, 4, 7. Let's just do the same thing in the bottom row, because this 5, 6 effectively are fixed, so we still need 4, 7 and 8. Oh no, that's hopeless. Those two squares are 4, 7 or 8, but we don't actually get a restriction. You'll see though today, because I suspect this is going to be a hard puzzle, I am starting to pencil mark centrally in boxes, just to make sure that we keep track of everything we're finding. Let's look at this. We've got 6 numbers in this column, look. So we need 4, 6 and 8. Oh, well this, look, there's a 4 and an 8 there. Oh no, not 4, 6 and 8, that's why I'm finding things I shouldn't. 4, 5 and 6. Oh, well it's still good. No, we've got a 4 and a 5 there, so that is a 6. Which obviously means this is a 5 because of this 5 here, and that must be a 4. 4's over on this side now. Ah, there's a 4 there as well. Nearly missed that. This is not 4 now here. 4, 5. I mean, so far we've done okay on this, haven't we? Let's just check this column as well. We need 2, 7 and 8. So this is a 2 or a 7. There's some other square. Ah, that one. So we've got 2 7s in those two. And that one can be 2, 7 or 8. Similarly up there, 2, 7 or 8. Let's check this row. We need 2, 5 or 7. So that one, again, that's a 5 or a 7. That's a 2 or a 7. There's another 2, 7, look. And that one can only, that can be anything, I think. Well, 2, 5 or 7. See the 2's locked into exactly 2 positions in this row. Similarly with the 5s. Let me just have a stare at that for a moment. Fives aren't going to be useful. We've already got too many 5s in the grid. The only 5s outstanding, I think, are those 2. So 2s. Can we do anything with 2s? Well, maybe. Let's just take a quick look at this. Let's look at this block. We're going to be able to eliminate 2's from a couple of squares here because we've got an empty rectangle on 2's. So if we look at this block and ask which squares the 2's can go into, we know for certain they're either in column 1 here, well actually one of those 2 squares, or they're in row 6. Now, so the interesting square here is this one for me, because this square can never contain a 2. And the reason is because we've locked these 2's down here into these 2 squares. So if this is a 2, obviously that square can't be a 2. If this is not a 2, I know the 2 must be in one of these 2 squares. But once it's in one of these 2 squares, it forces a 2 in row 8 to be in this square. Again, looking at this square here. So we know that either of these 2 squares will have to be a 2. And therefore that square cannot be a 2. So let's just take a look at this square and see what the restriction is on it. So it can only be 3, 6, 7 or 8. Looking at the row, there's a 6 here, so 3, 7 or 8. 3, 7, 8. I mean, that's not nearly as good as I was hoping, actually. Bother. Let's take a look at the central row. We need 2, 3, 6 and so that square is a bit restricted. That can only be a 2 or a 9. 2, 3, 6 here. 2, 3, 6 here. 2, 3, 6 here. 2, 3, 9 here. Bother. Okay, let's. I've not even seen the possibility of a swordfish yet, so well done to Robin for spotting that. Let's have a look at this row as well. We need a 2, 3, 6, 7 and 9, so I can see the 3 and the 6 here, so this square can only be 2, 7 or 9, I think. This square is a little bit restricted as well, isn't it? That can only be 2 or 7. There's so many of these 2 7s dotted around the grid. Let's just continue along here. So this is 3, 6 or 7. This is 2, 3, 7 or 9. That's completely hopeless. There's 2 7s. All of these dotted all over the place. Am I meant to be able to spot something from this? Now, hang on. Let's look at these 2s again. Because I did the empty rectangle that way round, but look, I can do it over here as well. This square can't be a 2 because of this 2. So the 2s in this block must be in the yellow cells. Now, so similarly to before, if the 2 is in one of those squares, this square cannot be a 2. If, on the other hand, the 2 is vertical, one of these squares, it'll see this square. And therefore the 2 in row 8 will be forced over into that square. So either this is a 2 or the 2 is in one of these 3 squares. Therefore that square cannot be a 2. And that is interesting now because look, we've got a bent triple going round this corner on 2, 7 and 9. Now, can we get anything useful from this? So bent triples, they're not as good as if you get a triple in a column, but we can still get a restriction. And the way to think about this, I think the technical term for a bent triple is a Y-wing, but that doesn't really tell you anything about how to spot it, whereas bent triple I think is easier. So we look at the middle cell of the bent triple and we say what happens if it's a 9? That square will be a 2 obviously. The only other position would be if this is a 7. Now if this is a 7, this square is a 2. So we know one of the yellow squares here must be a 2. Therefore that square, which sees both these 2 squares, that is not a 2. So what am I meant to be seeing here? This is very hard. I might be just going up a complete dead end here. So the 2, there is a 2 in one of those 2 squares. Right, so that's not a 2. So the 2 is in one of these 2 squares. 3, 6. Yeah. Right. Oh yes, I've got another digit. Right. Okay. So now let's look at this column. So where do the 2s go in this column? Only in 2 positions. I'll use the same colour because it's the same restriction. In this column, there can only be 2s in these 2 squares now because we've managed to eliminate the 2 from this square. Now, again, we can look at empty rectangles here, but what I actually saw was this column. If we look at this column and ask where the 2s can go, look, those 2 squares are the only squares where a 2 can go. So now, what's this pattern called? Well, this is the classic X-wing pattern. And what does it mean? Well, because we know that 2 is locked into 2 positions in this column and 2 positions in this column, and it's the same 2 rows, we know in the final solution, if we look at the final solution to this puzzle, and we saw a 2 in this square, then we would know there would be a 2 in that square. And that's because there's only 2 positions for the 2 in column 4. Now the only other situation that could exist when we looked at the final solution, if this isn't a 2, we know the 2 must be there because there's only 2 positions for the 2 in column 2. Now if the 2 is here, there would have to be a 2 there. Now why does this matter? Well, it matters because it has a profound effect on the rows, not the columns. The restriction is in the columns, but the effect of the restriction is on the rows, because we know from the logic of the X shape that either this square or this square will be a 2, and either this square or this square will be a 2 in the finished solution. Therefore, there can never be 2's in any of those yellow squares. It's impossible, because there will always be a 2 in one of the purple squares in these rows. Now look, there. This square, we've got pencil mark 2, 7. This cannot be a 2, so it must be a 7. Now hopefully that is, well, I can see it's going to give us some things for sure. Will it give us enough to finish the puzzle? Now let's just do this slowly to make sure that we're not going to make a pig's ear of this. So 7, 7, there must be a 7 in one of those 2 squares. And this 7 here forces this square to be a 4. Which removes a 4 from that square. Forces a 4 into this position because of this 4 at the top. That forces a 4 into that square as well. And of course placing the 4 here means this square can now only be a 2. Which means this square is not a 2. Now, of course, this is the whole start of our empty rectangle stuff, was this row. So once we know this square can't be a 2, I know that one's going to be a 2. I'm just checking the rest of this. This square can only be 5 or 8. 6 or 8, 5. I have to look round this new microphone, it's so big. If I decide to keep it, I will find some way of suspending it or something. This will be a 2. So this is not a 2. And now these 2's interact. Look, they force a 2 into that square. These 2 squares now have got to be 7 and 8, and we can see from the pencil marking they've got to be that way round. That square up there is now an 8. That one is a 2, therefore we can complete the other side of the X-wing. That will have to be a 2. This square now is a 7 because it can only be a 2 or a 7. That forces an 8 down here, a 5, a 7, a 5. I'm going a bit quicker. I don't know if that's sensible, but no, don't put a 6 in there, put a 3 in there. Now, these 2 squares have got to be 3 and 5, I think. So that square should be a 2. Be interesting. I wonder if it was the 2's that formed the basis of the swordfish. And the reason I say that is that X-wings are obviously, a swordfish is just a 3-dimensional version of the 2-dimensional X-wing. So it is possible that there was a swordfish on 2's, I think. And that would have been the thing that Robin spotted. Now 9, 2 here. This can't be a 9 anymore. 9, 9. This must be a 9 just by straightforward Sudoku. This square here can't possibly be a 5. Must be an 8. That means that's an 8. Just unwinding the pencil marks. Look. 3, 6, 7 into this square. This has got to be a 3. 6, 3, 6, 5, 5, 3. These 2 squares must be 7 and 6. I really hope I haven't made a mistake here. And that one would be a 7. And let's check. Yes. Okay, so that's how I would do it, Robin, without looking for swordfishes at all. I'm not sure I would. I would have had to been a lot longer looking at it, I think, to find the swordfish there, let alone the Y-wings wherever they were meant to be. But I hope that was useful. Do let us know in the comments if you enjoyed it. Do let me know whether this microphone volume is better. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.